You said we as an higher educational institution, we have to face the challenging needs of students. How about the industry? There's another parameter in our equation, right? Another variable.
I already gave you the answer to that. I told you I was in the wrong session. I mean, I think that is certainly always part of it. And I didn't mean to give the impression that this was a comprehensive answer to the problem. In fact, my purpose was more to generate some thinking about what it is that we might do in the future. I think the needs of the workplace, the needs of industry, the larger needs of our society, the public good, the private good, all of those things have to be part of the ongoing conversation. And they are part of our ongoing conversation. So I didn't intend to disregard it. I was just, I suppose, really trying to be provoking. Yeah, that's right.
You did that.
I have a question. My name is James Borden, and I'm from the University College of the Cayman Islands. And my question is to the last speaker. In a society which increasingly places emphasis on credentialization, degrees, how do you convince students that going 4 years for a degree only to be unemployed at the end is a better proposition than going for a trade or a vocation where there is immediate employment?
Oh, I think that's that's a much larger social question. It's an issue. It's a larger social issue. I mean, it involves everything from parents to school teachers to counselors, school counselors, to government, to issues around public policy, to opportunity that students might have. I would be the first one to admit that it's a hard sell. For parents who perhaps have never had an opportunity, and our students are certainly, many of them, the majority, are still first-generation students, that their parents see getting a university degree as the big thing. But what is really, really interesting is that, and here I'll use the example of Ontario, which is a different province. In Ontario, the last numbers I saw, they have universities and colleges too, but they're not quite like the ones we have. 30% of university graduates are now returning to college in order to get a credential that they can actually use. And all I'm suggesting, as far as we are concerned, is that we have tried to take that credential, that college credential, and integrate it into a degree so that you get the best of both worlds. Does it work every time? Is it awkward sometimes? Yeah, of course it is. But does the government like it? Sometimes not. But you just keep pegging away because we have accepted that this is a principle that we want to have. But just up the road from my own institution, the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, I was talking to the president the other day, and he told me 50% of his students already have university degrees. So I think students recognize it eventually, just takes a little time.
James Mahwal from, well, possibly New Zealand or Australia or Rwanda or somewhere. One of the experiences I've had, of course, is working with different governments, and I'm interested in David's model, which I accept everything he says, I believe everything he says. The question, though, is how to change it. And I had a disagreement yesterday morning over what would happen if you gave universities autonomy. The assumption seemed to be that they would adopt socially responsible policies and do socially responsible things, and I didn't think that was the case. I thought what motivated them, what incentivized them, were different things. It could be money, hence all your business students. It could be, if you're a public university, what the government wants, or they'll jump on you. Or it could be university rankings. Nobody wants to be number 1,000 something or other. You'd all rather be number 50. So the question is, who do we need to persuade? How do we need to generate the incentives to have universities do the sort of things that you tell us, quite rightly, we should be doing?
Well, I mean, the biggest impediment to getting change, certainly in my province, is the government of Alberta. I mentioned the significant increasing overlay of bureaucratic control of higher education. And I must confess that it takes an enormous amount of effort to make a very small, very limited progress. But I don't think that should prevent us from trying to do it. The interesting thing about rankings is that, I have a personal view about rankings. Rankings are important to the universities for whom rankings are important. And there are, perhaps 200 universities in this world that play in that league, that play in the bigs, as we would say. And for them, yeah, rankings are terribly, terribly important. But for most of us, for the hundreds, thousands of small colleges in the United States, or in fact, most of the universities in Canada outside of Toronto and McGill and UBC and perhaps even the University of Alberta, rankings really don't matter very much. What really matters is that students keep coming through the door, they keep saying they're having a good experience, they talk about that to their friends, and we can walk away thinking we've done a pretty good job. So I think we have to draw the distinction between the institutions for whom rankings are critically important, and I understand that and do not dismiss their importance. But, do I really want to be number 982? Will that really make a difference if I'm not 983? I really don't think so. And we had the experience in Canada of the infamous Maclean's rankings, and some of you may have heard about that. And every university president in the country wanted to stop it. It was going to be our uniquely Canadian example of what happens in the US. And everyone was afraid that the institution at the bottom was going to be the odd man out. Well, the institution at the bottom didn't lose any students. The institutions, the Queens and the McGills of this world, whom everybody thought were better, still thought they were better. And the ones that were ordinary were still ordinary. And we still had lots of students, and we still seem to get lots of good students. So I'm not sure that we need to worry about that so much. Could be wrong.
Well, the question about who and how do we need to change is a very important question. I know that in the Middle East and in the MENA region as a whole, the main barrier is the social barrier, the students, the parents, and as far as you were mentioning, what major to select, and whether to go vocational technical education or regular academic degree. These are important questions that pave the way for students, as far as their professional, most of the students' professional life. And I think it's the same for many countries across the globe, not just the region. So it's the lack of information. Very few lucky students in very few schools, at least in Lebanon, where I come from, have the opportunity to understand what a certain major is. When you provide this information to the parents and to the students, I think they're much better equipped to make a more informed decision of whether to go into an arts, liberal arts, or into engineering. I can tell you, for example, in Lebanon, half of the members of the engineering syndicate are out of work. Half of the members of the doctors' syndicates are out of work. Everybody is getting engineering and medicine, and needless to say, there are very weak universities, and people go there because they want an engineering degree or a medical. So it's the lack of information, it's the social barriers, it's the misinformation across the board, for even some academicians as well as parents, as to what VTE means, what vocational technical education means, and as to what a liberal arts degree means. And the government or the Ministry of Higher Education and Education has a certain responsibility, but I think the private sector, and as far as the schools, as well as the university, also have a certain responsibility. Some universities have a majorless first year at university to allow students to decide which way to go. That's also part of the solution, but it's a complicated one, and I know I had to face it in several years in various positions in Lebanon.
Thank you. Maybe I can pass the word to Mr. Khan, because you mentioned that Bangladesh has many private institutions. What's the situation over there about the responsibility towards the students, to guiding them to a most promising job market?
Yeah, I think as I already mentioned in my presentation, because we are also introducing the career mapping. As you rightly pointed out, a lot of cases students are not aware that which career they should select. So that's why in the we also did the mandatory for do the career mapping. So we are keeping some mind mapping. So our teacher, some of the teacher is got the well trained up, so that the student are interact with the teacher. And a lot of cases the student may determine that they will select that like management or accounting or like real estate department. So after mind mapping and career mapping, it is understood that his level of understanding will be fit for these courses. So that's why even that we also introduce one art of living course where we call the parents also, because as you rightly pointed out, because especially the Asian community, that's a very emotional. So a lot of cases, parents is also determined to the student that you should select medical, you should select engineering. So that's why we also introduce in our course that the teachers need to also interact with the parents. So both of three-tier arrangement we did it, where parents, teachers, and students, both of them interact each other, and then finally they select the career mapping. So this is, we just introduced 2 years back, and it's really, I should say, the unbelievable successful.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. I have one more comment on yours talk. You mentioned that the government has some initiative to improve the situation in southern Italy, where there is not much industry. Maybe you can elaborate on that as well.
Yeah, sure. This is a problem in the south part of Italy because, as you know, in Italy, most of the industries are concentrated in the north part. And we have a lot of students because we are a pretty big university, 36,000 students, so we have a problem to find a job for all these students. For instance, at national level, we have initiative at national level and at local level trying to solve this problem. At national levels, for instance, the Ministry of University and Research is strongly supporting industrial PhD program. So you can run your PhD provided that you have a company and you are working with that company to solve a specific problem. So in the end, what happens is that the students will work on specific company and industry problem, and then the industry will take the PhD students to work with them, and this can solve the problem. At local level, what we try to do is to promote the creation of startup and spin-off company, as I was mentioning during the presentation, because this could be very, very useful to help students in find a position after the degree. And even what we are doing respect to the last question, also in that case we have to control. At national levels they put some constraint to the number of students that you can take in the engineering faculty or medicine or whatever. At local level, vice versa, as university, we always try to talk with companies and industry to understand their needs. So, and we have some flexibility. We can ask to improve, for instance, in my university, in my department, the number of students we take, because we know that there are some companies that are requiring specific skills and specific students. So at national level, we have a full control on the total number of students. At local level, we try to talk with companies and see which are the needs, and then we try to find a trade-off, a balance in order to answer to the industry needs.
Okay, thank you.